Towards the Creative Nothing by Renzo Novatore. 1. Our epoch is an epoch of decadence. Bourgeois, Christian, plebeian civilization arrived at the dead end of its evolution a long time ago. Democracy has arrived. But under the false splendor of democratic civilization, higher spiritual values have fallen, shattered. Willful strength, barbarous individuality, free art, heroism, genius, poetry have been scorned, mocked, slandered. And not in the name of I, but of the collective. Not in the name of the unique one, but of society. Thus Christianity, condemning the primitive and wild force of the virgin instinct, killed the vigorously pagan concept of the joy of the earth. Democracy, its offspring, glorified itself, making the justification for this crime and reveling in its grim and vulgar enormity. Already we knew it. Christianity had brutally planted the poisoned blade in the healthy, quivering flesh of all humanity. It had goaded a cold wave of darkness with mystically brutal fury to dim the serene and festive exaltation of the Dionysian spirit of our pagan ancestors. In one cold evening, winter fatally fell upon a warm midday of summer. It was Christianity that, substituting the phantasm of God for the vibrant reality of I, declared itself the fierce enemy of the joy of living and avenged itself navishly on earthly life. With Christianity, life was sent to mourn in the frightful abysses of the most bitter renunciations. She was pushed towards the glacier of disavowal and death. And from this glacier of disavowal and death, democracy was born. Thus, democracy, the mother of socialism, is the daughter of Christianity. 2. With the triumph of democratic civilization, the spiritual mob was glorified. With its fierce anti-individualism, democracy, being incapable of understanding such a thing, trampled all the heroic beauty of the anti-collectivist and creative I. The bourgeois toads and the proletarian frogs clasped each other's hands in a common spiritual baseness, piously receiving communion from the lead cup containing the slimy liquor of the very social lies that democracy handed to each of them. And the songs that bourgeois and proletarian raised at their spiritual communion were a common and noisy hurrah to the victorious and triumphant goose. And while the hurrahs burst forth high and frenzied, she, democracy, pressed the plebeian cap on her forehead, proclaiming, grim and savage irony, the equal rights of man. It was then that the eagle, in his prudent awareness, beat his titanic wings more swiftly, soaring, disgusted by the trivial performance, towards the peak of meditation. Thus, the democratic goose remained queen of the world and lady of all things, imperial mistress and sovereign. But since something waiting above her laughed, she, by means of socialism, her only true son, moved to hurl a stone and a word, in the low, swampy realm where the toads and frogs croaked, to raise a materialistic fistfight in order to make it pass through a titanic war to superb ideas and to spirituality. And in the marshes, the fistfight happened. It happened in such a plebeian manner as to spray mud so high that it stained the stars. Thus everything was contaminated with democracy. Everything, even that which was best here, even that which was worst here. In the reign of democracy, the struggles that were opened between capital and labor were stunted struggles, impotent ghosts of war, deprived of all content of high spirituality and of brave revolutionary greatness, unable to create a different concept of life, stronger and more beautiful. Bourgeois and proletarian, though clashing over questions of class, of power, and of the belly, still always remained united in common hatred against the great vagabonds of the spirit, against the solitaries of the idea, against all those stricken by thought, against all those transfigured by a superior beauty. With democratic civilization, Christ has triumphed. In addition to paradise in heaven, the poor in spirit had democracy on earth. If the triumph has not yet been completed, socialism will complete it. In its theoretical conception, it has already announced itself for a long time. It aims to level all human worth. Listen, O youthful spirits. The war against the human individual was begun by Christ in the name of God, was developed by democracy in the name of society, and threatens to complete itself in socialism in the name of humanity. If we do not know in time how to destroy these three absurd as well as dangerous phantoms, the individual will be inexorably lost. It is necessary that the revolt of the I expands itself, broadens itself, generalizes itself. We, the forerunners of the time, have already lit the beacons. We have lit the torches of thought. We have brandished the axe of action, and we have smashed, and we have unhinged. But our individual crimes must be the fatal announcement of a great social storm. The great and dreadful storm that will smash all the structures of the conventional lies, that will unhinge the walls of all hypocrisy, that will reduce the old world to a heap of ruins and smoking rubble. Because it is from these ruins of God, of society, of family, and of humanity that the new human mind could be born, flourishing and festive. That new human mind which, on the rubble of all the past, will sing the birth of the liberated man, the free and great I. Christ was a paradoxical misunderstanding from the Gospels. He was a sad and sorrowful phenomenon of decadence, born of pagan fatigue. The Antichrist is the healthy son of all the bold hatred that life has bred in the secrecy of its own fecund breast during the 20 and more centuries of Christian order. Because history returns, because eternal return is the law that rules the universe. It is the destiny of the world. It is the axis around which life itself turns, to perpetuate itself, to run itself back, to contradict itself, to pursue itself, to not die. Because life is a movement, an action, that pursues thought, that yearns for thought, that loves thought. And this being walks, runs, bustles around. Life wants to stir in the kingdom of ideas, but when the way is impractical, then thought weeps. It weeps and despairs. Then weariness makes it weak, renders it Christian. Then it takes its sister life in hand and seeks to confine her in the realm of death. But the Antichrist, the spirit of the most mysterious and profound instinct, calls life back to himself, shouting barbarically to her, "Let's begin again," and life begins again, because it does not want to die. And if Christ symbolizes the weariness of life, the sunset of thought, the death of the idea, the Antichrist symbolizes the instinct of life. He symbolizes the resurrection of thought. The Antichrist is the symbol of a new dawn. If the dying democratic, bourgeois, Christian, plebeian civilization succeeded in leveling the human mind, denying every high spiritual value that stands out above it, it, fortunately, did not succeed in leveling the differences of class, of privilege, and of caste, which, as we have already said, remained divided only over a question of the belly. Since, for the one class as for the other, the belly remained, it is necessary to confess it, and not only to confess it as the supreme ideal, and socialism understood all this. It understood it, and since it was a skillful, and at last perhaps practically useful speculator, it cast the poison of its coarse doctrine of equality of life before the sacred majesty of the sovereign state, into the wells of slavery, where innocence blissfully quenched its thirst. But the poison that socialism spread was not the powerful poison capable of giving heroic virtue to anyone who drank it. No, it was not the radical poison capable of performing the miracle that elevates the human mind, transfiguring it and freeing it. Rather, it was a hybrid blend of yes and no, a livid mixture of authority and faith, of state and of the future. So that, through socialism, the proletarian mob once again felt close to the bourgeois mob, and together they turned towards the horizon, faithfully awaiting the sun of the future. And this because, while socialism was not able to transform the shivering hands of the slaves into so many iconoclastic, pitiless, and rapacious claws, it was also incapable of transforming the mean avarice of the tyrants into the high and superior virtue of generosity. With socialism, the corrupt and vicious circle created by Christianity and developed by democracy was not broken. Instead, it consolidated itself better. Socialism remained as a dangerous and impractical bridge between the tyrant and the slave, as a false link of conjunction, as the ambiguity of the yes and the no, from which its absurd underlying principle is mixed. And once again, we saw the fatally obscene joke that disgusted us. We saw socialism, proletariat, and bourgeoisie together re-enter the orbit of the lowest spiritual poverty to worship democracy. But democracy, being the people that governed the people by beatings with cudgels, for the love of the people, as Oscar Wilde one day quipped, it was logical that true free spirits, great vagabonds of the idea, more strongly felt the need to push decisively toward the extreme boundary of their iconoclasm of the solitary, in order to prepare the trained phalanxes of the human eagles in the silent desert, those who will furiously take part in the tragic celebration of the social dusk in order to overturn democratic civilization between their steel claws and plunge it into the void of an ancient time that was. When the bourgeoisie had kneeled to the right of socialism in the sacred temple of democracy, they serenely stretched out in the bed of expectation to sleep their absurd sleep of peace. But the proletarians, who had lost their happy innocence by drinking the socialist poison, shouted from the left side, upsetting the tranquil sleep of the idiotic, criminal bourgeoisie. In the meantime, on the higher mountains of thought, the vagabonds of the idea overcame nausea, announcing that something like the roaring laughter of Zarathustra had echoed sinisterly. The wind of the spirit, similar to a hurricane, would have had to penetrate the human mind and raise it impetuously in the whirlwind of ideas in order to overwhelm all the old values from the darkness of time, raising the life of the sublimated instinct again in the sun with the new thought. But, awakening, the bourgeois toads understood that some incomprehensible thing cried out in the heights, threatening their base existence. Yes, they understood that a thing arrived from the heights like a rock, a roar, a menace. They understood that the satanic voices of frenzied forerunners of time announced a furious tempest that, arising from the renewed will of a few solitaries, exploded in the entrails of society to raze it to the ground. But they have not understood, and will never understood this until they have been crushed, that what passed over the world was the powerful wing of a free life in the beating of which was the death of the bourgeois man and of the proletarian man, because all people could have been unique and universal at the same time. And this was the reason why all the bourgeoisie of the world rang their bells, made from false idealistic metal, in mass calling themselves to a great assembly. The assembly was general. All the bourgeoisie gathered. They gathered among the slimy rushes growing from the quagmire of their common lies, and there, in the silence of the mud, they decided the extermination of the proletarian frogs, their servants and friends. In the ferocious plot, all sides were devotees of Christ and of democracy. All the former apostles of the frogs attended as well. The war was decided, and the prince of the Black Vipers blessed the fratricidal armies in the name of the god who said, "Do not kill," while the symbolic vicar of death implored his goddess, who came to dance on the earth. Then socialism, as skillful acrobat and practical juggler, took a leap ahead. He jumped on the tight wire of sentimental political speculation, his brow encircled in black and, aching and weeping more or less this way, said, "I am the true enemy of violence. I am the enemy of war, and also the enemy of revolution. I am the enemy of blood." And after having spoken again of peace and of equality, of faith and martyrdom, and of humanity and of the future, he intoned a song on the motifs of the yes and the no, bowed his head and wept. He wept the tears of Judas, which are not even the "I wash my hands of it" of Pilate. And the frogs departed. They departed towards the realm of supreme human baseness. They departed towards the mud of all the trenches. They departed, and death came. It came drunk on blood and danced horribly in the world, for 5 long years. It was then that the great vagabonds of the spirit, taken with a new disgust, rode their free eagles once more to soar dizzily in the solitude of their distant glaciers to laugh and curse. Even the spirit of Zarathustra, the truest lover of war and the most sincere friend of warriors, must have remained sufficiently disgusted and scornful since somebody heard him exclaim, "For me, you must be those who stretch your eyes in search of the enemy of your enemy, and in some of you hatred blazes at first glance. You must look for your enemy, fight your war, and this for your ideas. And if your idea succumbs, your rectitude cries of triumph. But alas, the heroic sermon of the liberating barbarian availed nothing. The human frogs knew neither how to distinguish their own enemy nor how to fight their own ideas. The frogs have no ideas. And neither recognizing their enemies nor having their own ideas, they fought for the bellies of their brothers in Christ, for their equals in democracy. They fought against each other for their enemy. Abel, revived, died for Cain a second time, but this time at his own hand. Voluntarily, because he could have rebelled and he did not do so. Because he could have said no or yes. Because saying no, he could have been strong. Because saying yes, he could have shown that he believed in the cause for which he fought. But he said neither yes nor no. He departed from cowardice. Like always, he departed. He went toward death without knowing why, like always, and death came. It came to dance in the world for 5 long years, and it danced hideously in the muddy trenches of all parts of the world. It danced with feet of lightning. It danced and laughed for 5 long years. Ah, how vulgar is death that dances without having the wings of an idea on its back. What an idiotic thing to die without knowing why. We saw it when it danced, death. It was a black death, without transparency of light. It was a death without wings. How ugly and vulgar it was. How clumsy was its dance. But still it danced. And how it mowed, dancing. All the superfluous and all of those of the majority. All those for whom, says the great liberator, the state was invented. But alas, it did not mow these alone. Death, in order to avenge the state, has even mowed down those who are not worthless, even those who are essential. But those who were not worthless, those who were not of the majority, those who have fallen saying no, they will be avenged. We will avenge them. We will avenge them because they are our brothers. We will avenge them because they have fallen with stars in their eyes, because dying they have drunk the sun of life, the sun of struggle, the sun of an idea. 6. What has the war renewed? Where is the heroic transfiguration of the spirit? Where have they hung the phosphorescent tables of the new values? In which temple have the holy amphoras of gold enclosing the luminous and blazing hearts of the supreme and creative heroes been laid? Where is the splendor of the great and new moon? In which temple have the holy amphoras of gold enclosing the luminous and blazing hearts of the supreme and creative heroes been laid? Where is the splendor of the great and new moon? Frightful rivers of blood washed all the turf and covered all the pathways of the world. Fearful torrents of tears made their heart-breaking lament echo across the eddies of all the earth. Mountains of bone and human flesh everywhere blanched and everywhere rotted in the sun. But nothing was transformed. Nothing evolved. The bourgeois belly merely belched from satiety, and that of the proletarian cried out from too much hunger. And enough! With Karl Marx, the human mind descended into the intestines. The roar that passes through the world today is a belly roar. Our will can transform it into a shout of the mind, into a spiritual storm, into a cry of free life, into a hurricane of lightning. Our thunderbolt could unhinge the present reality, rip open the door to the unknown mystery of our longed-for freedom, and show the supreme beauty of the liberated man. Because we are mad forerunners of the time, the pyres, the beacons, the signals, the first announcements. 7. The war. Do you remember it? What has the war created? Here it is. The woman sold her body and called the prostitution free love. The man who dodged to manufacture bullets and to preach the sublime beauty of the war called his cowardice delicate artfulness and heroic cunning. This one who always lived in unconscious infamy, in cowardice, in humility, in indifference, and in weak renunciations, cursed against small audacities, which he had always detested, because by themselves they did not have the strength to prevent his belly from being torn apart by those weapons that he himself had constructed for a vile morsel of bread. Because even the beggars of the spirit, those who always remain outside to warm up while the more noble part of humanity enters into the hell of life, these humble and devoted servants of their tyrant, these unconscious slanderers of superior minds, even these, we say, did not want to depart. They did not want to die. They writhed, they wept, they implored, they prayed. But all this from a low instinct of impotent and bestial self-preservation, deprived of every heroic roar of revolt, and not instead from questions of a superior humanity, of refined depth of feeling, of spiritual beauty. No, nothing of all that. The belly, only the bestial belly, bourgeois ideal, proletarian ideal, the belly. But in the meantime, death came. It came to dance in the world without having the wings of an idea on its back. And it danced and laughed for 5 long years. And while on the borders, wingless death danced drunk on blood, at home in the sacred apse of the internal front, in the vulgar gazettes of lies, the miraculous mortal and material evolution of our women was recited and sung along with the spiritual peak that our heroic and glorious foot soldier ascended. The one who died weeping without knowing why. How many ferocious lies, how much vulgar cynicism the grim minds of democratic society and of the state vomited in the gazettes. Who remembers the war? How the crows croaked, the crows and the owls, and meanwhile death danced. It danced without having the wings of an idea on its back, of a dangerous idea that bears fruit and that creates. It danced and laughed. And how it mowed, dancing, the superfluous, all those who were of the majority, those for whom the state was invented. But alas, it did not only mow these, it also mowed those who had the rays of the sun in their eyes, those who had the stars in their pupils. 8. Where is the epic art, the heroic art, the supreme art that the war promised us? Where is the free life, the triumph of the new dawn? The splendor of noon, the festive glory of the sun. Where is the redemption from material slavery? Where is the one who has created the fine and profound poetry that had to germinate painfully in this tragic and fearful abyss of blood and death? in order to tell us the silent and cruel torture felt by the human mind? Who has said the sweet and good word to us that calls a clear morning after a terrible night of hurricane? Who has said the superior word that makes us great as our sorrow, pure in beauty and deep in humanity? Whoever is the genius, who has known how to bend himself with love and faithfulness over the opened wounds in the living flesh of our life, to receive all the noble tears from them, so that the supreme laughter of the Redeemer's spirit could rend the claws from the starving monsters of our past errors in order to make us ascend to the concept of a superior ethic, where, through the luminous principle of human beauty, purified in blooded sorrow, we could lift ourselves strong and majestic, like an arrow taught on the bow of the will, to sing the deepest and gentlest melody of the highest of all our hopes to earthly life. Where? I don't see it. I don't feel it. I look around me, but I see only vulgar pornography and false cynicism. At least we could have been given a Homer of art and a Napoleon of the acts of war. A man who could have had the strength to destroy an epoch, to create a new history, but nothing. The war has given us neither great singers nor great rulers, only lying ghosts and grim parodies. 9. The war has passed, washing history and humanity in tears and blood, but the epoch has remained unchanged, an epoch of disintegration. Collectivism is dying and individualism has not yet taken hold. Nobody knows how to obey, nobody knows how to command, but given all this, knowing how to live free, this is still at present an abyss that can only be filled up with the corpse of slavery and that of authority. The war could not fill up this abyss. It could only dig it deeper. But what the war could not do, revolution must do. The war has rendered humans more beastly and plebeian, coarser and uglier. Revolution must render them better. It must ennoble them. 10. Already, socially speaking, we have slipped down the fatal slope, and there is no more possibility of turning back. To attempt it alone would be a crime, not a great and noble crime, however, but a vulgar crime, a crime more than useless and vain, a crime against the flesh of our ideas, because we are not the enemies of blood, we are the enemies of vulgarity. Now that the age of obligation and slavery is agonizing, we want to close the cycle of theoretical and contemplative thought in order to open the breach to violent action, which is still the will of life and the exaltation of expansion. On the ruins of piety and religion, we want to erect the creative hardness of our proud hearts. We are not the admirers of the ideal man, of social rights, but the proclaimers of the actual individual, enemy of social abstractions. We fight for the liberation of the individual, for the conquest of life, for the triumph of our idea, for the realization of our dreams. And if our ideas are dangerous, it is because we are those who love to live dangerously. And if our dreams are mad, it is because we are mad. But our madness is supreme wisdom. But our ideas are the heart of life. But our thoughts are the beacons of humanity. And what the war has not done, revolution must do. Because revolution is the fire of our will and a need of solitary minds. It is an obligation of the libertarian aristocracy to create new ethical values, to create new aesthetic values, to communalize material wealth, to individualize spiritual wealth. Because we, violent cerebralists and passional sentimentalists at the same time, understand and know that revolution is a necessity of the silent sorrow that suffers at the bottom and a need of the free spirits who suffer in the heights. Because if the sorrow that suffers at the bottom wants to rise with the happy smile of the sun, the free spirits who suffer in the heights no longer want to feel the petty offenses of the shame of vulgar slavery that surrounds them. The human spirit is divided into three streams: the stream of slavery, the stream of tyranny, the stream of freedom. With revolution, the last of these streams needs to burst upon the other two and overwhelm them. It needs to create spiritual beauty, teach the poor the shame of their poverty, and the rich the shame of their wealth. All that is called material property, private property, exterior property, needs to become what the sun, the light, the sky, the sea, the stars are for individuals. And this will happen. It will happen because we, the iconoclasts, will violate it. Only ethical and spiritual wealth is invulnerable. This is the true property of individuals. The rest, no. The rest is vulnerable, and all that is vulnerable will be violated. It will be done by the unbiased might of the I, by the heroic strength of the freed man, and beyond every law, every tyrannical morality, every society, every conception of false humanity. We must set our endeavor to transform the revolution that advances into anarchist crime in order to push humanity beyond the state, beyond socialism, toward anarchy. If, with the war, people were not able to sublimate themselves in death, death has purified the blood of the fallen. And the blood that death purified and that the soil drank greedily now cries from the underground. And we, solitaries, we are not the singers of the belly, but the listeners to the dead, to the voice of the dead who cry from the underground, to the voice of the impure blood that is purified in death. And the blood of the fallen cries from the underground, and the cry of this blood calls us also toward the abyss. It needs to be freed from its prison. O young miners, be ready. We prepare the torches and paravanes. It is necessary to till the earth. It is time, it is time, it is time. The blood of the dead must be freed from its prison. It wants to rise from the shadowy depths to hurl itself toward the sky and conquer the stars. Because the stars are the friends of the dead. They are the good sisters who have seen them die. They are the ones who go to their graves every night with feet of light and tell them, tomorrow. And we, the children of tomorrow, have come today to tell you, it is time, it is time, it is time. And we have come at the hour before dawn, in the company of the dawn and the last of the stars. And to the dead we have added more dead. But all those who fall have a star of gold that shines in their pupil, a star of gold that says, the cowardice of the remaining brothers is transformed into a creative dream, into avenging heroism, because if it were not so, one would not deserve to die. How sad it must be to die, without a hope in one's heart, without a pyre in one's brain, without a dream in one's mind, without a star of gold shining in our pupil. The blood of the dead, our dead, cries from the underground. Clearly and distinctly, we hear that cry which intoxicates us with anguish and sorrow, and we cannot be deaf to that voice, nor do we want to. We do not want to be deaf to it, because life has told us, whoever is deaf to the voice of blood is not worthy of me, because blood is my wine, and the dead my secret. Only to the one who will listen to the voice of the dead will I unveil the enigma of my great mystery, and we will respond to this voice, because only those who know how to respond to the voice from the abyss can conquer the stars. I address myself to you, O my brother. I address myself to you and tell you, if you are among those who are kneeling in the half circle, close your eyes in the darkness and leap into the abyss. Only in this way will you be able to bounce back to the highest peaks and open your great pupils wide in the sun. Because one cannot be of the eagles if one is not of the divers. One cannot soar to the peaks when one is incapable of the depths. In the bottom, sorrow dwells. In the heights, anguish. Over the sunset of all the ages, a unique dawn rises between two different dusks. In the midst of the virgin light of this unique dawn, the sorrow of the diver that is in us must be united to the anguish of the eagle that also lives in us, to celebrate the tragic and fruitful marriage of perpetual renewal. The renewal of the personal I, among the collective tempests and social hurricanes. Because perennial solitude is only for saints who recognize in God their witness, but we are the atheist offspring of solitude. We are the solitary demons without witness. In the bottom, we want to live in the reality of sorrow. In the heights, the sorrow of the dream. In order to live all the battles, all the defeats, all the victories, all the dreams, all the sorrows, and all the hopes, intensely and dangerously. And we want to sing in the sun. We want to howl in the winds. Because our brain is a sparkling pyre, where the great fire of thought crackles and burns in mad and joyful torments. Because the purity of all dawns, the flame of all noons, the melancholy of all sunsets, the silence of all tombs, the hatred of all hearts, the murmur of all forests, and the smile of all stars are the mysterious notes composing the secret music of our mind, overflowing with vital exuberance. Because in the depth of our heart, we hear a voice speaking of human individuation, a voice so masterful and vigorous that oftentimes while listening to it, we feel fear and terror, because the voice that speaks is his voice, the winged demon from our depths. 11. By now it is proven, life is sorrow, but we have learned to love sorrow in order to love life, because in loving sorrow, we have learned to struggle, and in struggle alone, is our joy of living. To remain suspended halfway is not our task. The half circle symbolizes the ancient yes and no, the impotence of life and death. It is the circle of socialism, of pity and of faith, but we are not socialists. We are anarchists and individualists and nihilists and aristocrats, because we come from the mountains, from close to the stars. We come from the heights to laugh and to curse. We have come to plight a forest of pyres upon the earth, to illuminate it during the night which precedes the great noon. And our pyres will be extinguished when the fire of the sun bursts majestically over the sea. And if this day should not come, our pyres will continue to crackle tragically amidst the darkness of the eternal night. Because we love all that is great. We are the lovers of every miracle, the promoters of every prodigy, the creators of every wonder. Yes, we know it. For you, great things are in good as in evil, but we live beyond good and evil, because all that is great belongs to beauty, even crime, even perversity, even sorrow. And we want to be great like our crime, in order not to slander it. We want to be great like our perversity, in order to render it conscious. We want to be great like our sorrow, in order to be worthy of it. Because we come from the heights, from the home of beauty, we have come to raise a forest of pyres upon the earth to illuminate it during the night which precedes the great noon, until the hour in which the fire of the sun bursts majestically over the sea. Because we want to celebrate the feast of the great human prodigy. We want our minds to vibrate in a new dream. We want this tragic social dusk to give our eye some calm and thrilling tinder of universal light. Because we are the nihilists of social phantoms. Because we hear the voice of the blood that cries from the underground. We prepare the paravanes and the torches, O young miners. The abyss awaits us. We leap into it in the end, toward the creative nothing. 12. Our nihilism is not Christian nihilism. We do not deny life. No, we are the great iconoclasts of the lie, and all that is declared sacred is a lie. We are the enemies of the sacred, and to you a law is sacred, a society sacred, a moral sacred, an idea sacred. But we, the masters and lovers of pitiless strength and strong-willed beauty, of the ravishing idea, we, the iconoclasts of all that is consecrated, we laugh satanically with a fine, broad, and mocking laughter. We laugh, and laughing, we keep the bow of our pagan will to enjoy always strange toward the full integrity of life. And we write our truths with laughter, and we write our passions with blood, and we laugh. We laugh the fine, healthy, and red laughter of hatred. We laugh the fine, blue, and fresh laughter of love. We laugh, but laughing we remember with supreme gravity to be the legitimate offspring and the worthy heirs of a great libertarian aristocracy that transmitted to us satanic outbursts of mad heroism in the blood and waves of poetry, of solos, of songs in the flesh. Our brain is a sparkling pyre. where the crackling fire of thought burns in joyful torments. Our mind is a solitary oasis, always flowering and cheerful, where a secret music sings the complicated melody of our winged mystery. And in our brain, all the winds of the mountains cry to us. In our flesh, all the tempests of the sea shout to us, all the nymphs of evil. Our dreams are actual heavens, inhabited by thrilling virgin muses. We are the true demons of life, the forerunner of time, the first announcements. Our vital exuberance intoxicates us with strength and with scorn. It teaches us to despise death. 13. Today we have reached the tragic celebration of a great social dusk. The twilight is red, the sunset is bloody, anxiety flaps its throbbing wings in the wind, wings red with blood, wings black with death. In the shadow, sorrow organized the army of her unknown children. Beauty is in the garden of life and is weaving garlands of flowers to crown the brows of the heroes. The free spirits have already hurled their thunderbolts across the twilight as first announcements of fire, first signals of war. Our epoch is under the wheels of history. Democratic civilization turns towards the grave. Bourgeois and plebeian society is shattered fatally, inexorably. The fascist phenomenon is the most certain and irrefutable proof of it. To demonstrate it, we would only need to go back in time and question history. But there is no need for this. The present speaks with abundant eloquence. Fascism is nothing but the conclusive and cruel pang of a plebeian society, emasculated and vulgar, that agonizes tragically, drowned in the quagmire of its flaws and of its own lies. It, fascism, celebrates these bacchanals with pyres of flame and wicked orgies of blood. But from the gloomy crackle of its livid fires, it does not sparkle with even a single spark of vigorous, innovative spirituality, whereas the blood that it sheds transforms itself into wine, that the forerunners of the time silently gather in the red chalices of hatred, addressing it as the heroic beverage in order to commune with all the offspring of social sorrow called to the twilight celebration of the dusk. Because the great forerunners of the time are the brothers and the friends of the offspring of sorrow that struggles, of sorrow that rises, of sorrow that creates. We will take these unknown brothers by the hand to advance together against all the no of denial, and to climb together toward all the yes of affirmation, toward a new spiritual dawn, toward new noons of life. Because we are lovers of danger, the reckless ones in all undertakings, the conquerors of the impossible, the promoters and precursors of all endeavors. Because life is an endeavor. After the negating celebration of the social dusk, we will celebrate the right of the eye, the great noon of the complete and actual individual, so that the night triumphs no more, so that the darkness surrounds us no more, so that the majestic fire of the sun perpetuates its feast of light in the sky and in the sea. 14. Fascism is an obstacle much too ephemeral and impotent to hinder the course of human thought that bursts beyond every dam and overflows beyond every boundary, stirring action on its way. Fascism is impotent because it is brute force. It is matter without spirit. It is night without dawn. Fascism is the other face of socialism. Both of them are bodies without minds. 15. Socialism is the material force that, acting as the shadow of a dogma, resolves and dissolves in a spiritual no. Fascism is a consumptive of the spiritual no that aims, wretch, at a material yes. Both lack willful quality. They are the bores of time, the temporizers of the deed. They are reactionary and conservative. They are crystallized fossils that the strong-willed dynamism of history that passes will sweep away together. Because in the willful field of moral and spiritual values, the two enemies are equal. And it is well known that when fascism is born, socialism alone is its direct accomplice and responsible father. Because if when the nation, if when the state, if when democratic Italy, if when bourgeois society trembled in pain and agony in the naughty and powerful hands of the proletariat in revolt, socialism had not basely hindered the tragic deadly hold. Losing the lamps of reason in front of its wide-opened eyes, certainly fascism would never even have been born, let alone lived. But the awkward colossus without mind is then allowed to take hold, for fear that the vagabonds of the idea would push the movement of revolt beyond the appointed mark, in a most vulgar game of sullen conservative pity and false human love. Thus, bourgeois Italy, instead of dying, brought forth fascism. Because fascism is the stunted and deformed creature born of the impotent love of socialism for the bourgeoisie. One of them is the father, and the other the mother, but neither wants the responsibility for it. Perhaps they find it a child much too monstrous, and this is the reason they call it a bastard, and it gets revenge. Already wretched enough for being born this way, it rebels against the father and insults the mother, and perhaps it has reason. But we bring all this out for history and for truth, not for ourselves. For us, fascism is a poisonous mushroom planted quite well in the rotten heart of society. That is enough for us. 16. Only the great vagabonds of the idea can, and must, be the luminous spiritual fulcrum of the tempestuous revolution, which advances in gloom upon the world. Blood requires blood. That is ancient history. It can turn back no more. To attempt to turn back, as socialism does, would be a useless and vain crime. We must leap into the abyss. We must answer the voice of the dead, of those dead who have fallen with immense stars of gold in their pupils. It is necessary to cultivate the soil, to free the blood from the underground, because it wants to rise to the stars. It wants to burn its good sisters, luminous and distant, who have seen them die. The dead, our dead, speak. We have died with stars in our eyes. We have died with rays of the sun in our pupils. We have died with hearts swollen with dreams. We have died with the song of the most beautiful hope in our mind. We have died with the fire of an idea in our brain. We have died. How sad death must be as the others died, not our dead. Without all this in the brain, in the mind, in the heart, in the eyes, in the pupils. O dead, O dead, O our dead, O luminous torches, O burning beacons, O crackling pyres, O dead. Here it is, we are at twilight. The tragic celebration of the great social dusk draws near. Our great mind already opens toward the great subterranean light, O dead. Because we too have the stars in our eyes, the sun in our pupils, the dream in our heart, the song of hope in our mind, in our idea, an idea. Yes, we too. O dead, O our dead, O torches, O beacons, O pyres. We have heard you speak in the solemn silence of our deep nights. You said, we wanted to ascend in the sky of the free sun. We wanted to ascend in the sky of the free life. We wanted to ascend up there, where once the penetrating eyes of the pagan poet gazed, where the great thoughts arise and stand as inviolable oaks among the people, where beauty descends, invoked by the pure poets, and stands serene among the people, where love creates life and breathes joy. Up above, where life exults and expands in full harmony of splendor. And for this dream we struggled. For this great dream we died. And our struggle was called crime. But our crime must only be considered as titanic valor, as Promethean efforts for liberation. Because we are the enemies of all material domination and all spiritual leveling. Because, beyond all slavery and every dogma, we saw life dance free and naked, and our death must teach you the beauty of the heroic life. O dead, O our dead, we have heard your voice. We have heard it speak this way in the solemn silence of our deep nights. Deep, deep, deep. Because we are sensitives. Our heart is a torch. Our mind is a beacon. Our brain is a pyre. We are the soul of life. We are the pre-dawn ones who drink the dew from the chalice of flowers. But the flowers have glowing roots attached in the darkness of the earth. And that earth which has drunk your blood. O dead, O our dead. This, your blood that cries, that roars, that wants to be freed from its prison to hurl itself toward the sky and conquer the stars. Those, your remote and luminous sisters who have seen you die. And we, the vagabonds of the spirit, the solitaries of the idea, want our mind, free and great, to open its wings wide in the sun. We want to celebrate the social dusk in this twilight of bourgeois society so that the final black night is made vermilion with blood. Because the children of the dawn must be born of blood. Because the monsters of the darkness must be killed by dawn. Because the new individual ideas must be born through social tragedies. Because the new people must be forged in the fire. And only from tragedy, from fire, and from blood will the true, profound Antichrist of humanity and of thought be born. The true child of the earth and the sun. The Antichrist must be born of the smoking ruins of revolution to enliven the children of the new dawn. Because the Antichrist is the one who comes from the abyss to rise beyond every boundary. He is the strong-willed enemy of crystallization, of pre-establishment, of conservation. He is the one who will drive the human race through the mysterious cavern of the unknown to the perennial unveiling of new sources of life and of thought. And we, the free spirits, the atheists of solitude, the demons of the desert without witness, have ourselves already pushed ourselves toward the most extreme peaks. Because with us, everything must be pushed to its maximum consequences. Even hatred, even violence, even crime. Because hatred gives strength, violence unhinges, crime renews, cruelty creates, and we want to unhinge, to renew, to create. Because everything that is dwarfed vulgarity must be overcome. Because all that lives must be great. Because all that is great belongs to beauty, and life must be beautiful. 17. We have killed duty, so that our ardent desire for free brotherhood acquires heroic valor in life. We have killed pity, because we are barbarians capable of great love. We have killed altruism, because we are generous egoists. We have killed philanthropic solidarity so that the social man unearths his most secret I and finds the strength of the unique. Because we know it, life is tired of having stunted lovers. Because the earth is tired of feeling itself trampled by long phalanxes of dwarfs chanting Christian prayers. And finally, because we are tired of our brothers, carcasses incapable of peace and of war, inferior to hatred and to love. We are tired and disgusted. Yes, quite tired, quite disgusted. And then that voice of the dead, of our dead, the voice of the blood that cries from the underground, of the blood that wants to free itself from its prison, to hurl itself toward the sky and conquer the stars. Those stars that, blessing them, sparkled in their pupils as in the final moment of death, transforming their dreamy eyes into vast discs of gold. Because the eyes of the dead, of our dead, are discs of gold. They are luminous meteors that wander the infinite to point out the way to us. The way without end that is the pathway to eternity. The eyes of our dead tell us the why of life, showing us the secret fire that burns in our mystery. In that, our secret mystery that nobody has sung up to now. But today the twilight is red. The sunset is covered with blood. We are close to the tragic celebration of the great social dusk. Already, on the bells of history, time has struck the first pre-dawn strokes of a new day. Enough, enough, enough. It is the hour of the social tragedy. We will destroy laughing. We will set fires, laughing. We will kill, laughing. We will expropriate, laughing. And society will fall. The fatherland will fall. The family will fall. And will fall after the free man is born. The one is born who has learned the Dionysian art of joy and laughter through tears and sorrow. The hour has come to drown the enemy in blood. The hour has come to wash our minds in blood. Enough, enough, enough! As the poet transforms his lyre into a dagger, as the philosopher transforms his probe into a bomb, as the fisherman transforms his oar into a formidable axe, as the miner comes up from the unbearable caves of the dark mines armed with its shining iron, as the farmer transforms his fruitful spade into a war lance, as the laborer transforms his hammer into a scythe and cleaver, and forward, forward, forward. It is time, it is time, it is time, and society will fall, the fatherland will fall, the family will fall, all will fall after the free man is born. Forward, 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 O joyful destroyers! Beneath the black edge of death we will conquer life, laughing, and we will make it our slave, laughing, and we will love it, laughing. Since the only serious people are those who know how to be actively engaged, laughing, and our hatred laughs, red laughter, forward, forward for the destruction of the lie and of the phantoms, forward for the complete conquest of individuality and of life. Cry of rebellion. But if Socrates and Christ, by their senseless deaths, had to undergo horrendous bloody suffering, then wouldn't all revolutions fought in their names be equally bloody and senseless? The victory of Christianity over the enviable paganism, the establishment of republics, the conquests of empires, the liberal, constitutional, or absolute monarchies and democracies, were they not all consequences of the bloody torrents of war and revolution? The violent pulse of all revolutions fought in the name of ancient phantoms in order to erect new phantoms. What possible value could these phantoms have for me, the iconoclast, the killer of phantoms, the shatterer of idols old and new? And what possible benefit could the triumph of Christianity have for me, since I am the anti-Christian par excellence? And what about the republics, monarchies, and all forms of society that can only accept me as a Christian, a subject, a citizen, a member, etc., etc.? All forms of society have systems to do one thing: equalize. And all forms of society consider themselves the perfect one. And it is this dogma of perfection that obstructs the restless rebel who refuses to bow to its new god. And I'm so revolutionary that I barely recognize myself. And do you know why I am a barely recognizable revolutionary? Because I am guided only by the tremendous and unstoppable impulse of my desire to expand the force of my own will. I am not guided by phantoms. I do my own walking. It is not the illusion of a perfect society or the universal redemption of humanity, but the absolute need to affirm my potential in spite of all other forces. My opinions: God, the creation of a sick fantasy, inhabitant of senile and impotent brains, companion and comforter of rancid spirits born to slavery, a pill for constipated minds, Marxism for the faint of heart. Humanity, an abstract word with a negative connotation, long on power, short on truth. An obscene mask painted on the mean face of a shrewd vulgarian for the purpose of dominating the multitude of sentimentalist idiots and imbeciles. Country, penal servitude for the semi-intelligent, a cowshed of imbecility, a source who transforms her adoring fans into dogs and pigs, a prostitute for the master, a pimp of the foreigner, child eater, parent slanderer, and scoffer at heroes. Family, the denial of love, life, and liberty. Socialism, discipline, discipline, obedience, obedience, slavery and ignorance, pregnant with authority. A bourgeois body grotesquely fattened by a vulgar Christian creature. A medley of fetishism, sectarianism, and cowardice. Organizations, legislative bodies, and unions. Churches for the powerless, pawn shops for the stingy and weak. Many join to live parasitically off the backs of their card-carrying simpleton colleagues. Some join to become spies. Others, the most sincere, join to end up in jail from where they can observe the mean-spiritedness of all the rest. Solidarity, the macabre altar used by capable comedians of all sorts to display their priestly talent for reciting masses. The beneficiaries pay nothing less than 100% humiliation. Friendship. Fortunate are those who have drunk from its chalice without having their souls offended or poisoned. If one such person exists, I urge them to send me their photograph. I'm sure to look upon the face of an idiot. Love. Deception of the flesh and damage to the spirit. Disease of the soul, atrophy of the brain, weakening of the heart, corruption of the senses, poetic lies from which one gets ferociously inebriated 2 or 3 times a day in order to consume this precious but stupid life more quickly. And yet, I would prefer to die of love. It's the only swindler after Judas that can kill with a kiss. Man. A filthy paste of servitude, tyranny, fetishism, fear, vanity, and ignorance. The greatest offense one can commit against an ass is to call it a man. Woman. The most brutal of enslaved beasts, the greatest victim shuffling on earth. And, after man, the most responsible for her problems. I'd be curious to know what goes through her mind when I kiss her. Excerpt from Vertices. We absolutely feel we are beyond all isms and theories. We will suppress the works of all nitwits and all scribblers who, by affiliating with the schools of the avant-garde, try to impose themselves on more original minds. We will absolutely refuse all works of purely technical virtuosity unless they serve to express an aesthetic rebellion, dark virgin forces, laughing ravagers of the impossible, audacious explorers of the highest peaks and of the abyss. Let's thunder our howl of beauty to squash the verminous swarms of the stinking feeble-minded. I don't announce or promise anything. There are too many lying prophets who make pronouncements on the possibility of a new life. And there are even more vulgarians who promise the world new Christs with their unredeemed blood. Who are they? I don't know. I can't explain. I know I am a mixture of modesty, pride, wisdom, and ignorance, of virtue, cowardice, and heroism, light and gloom, logic and absurdity. I am suspended above an abyss of unexplored depth with my eye fixed on a distant peak that may be nothing more than an illusion. I know that within me are sunlit and blossoming summits like fantastic summer gardens. I also know that there are dark, hidden caverns that will never see the light of day. I have found some friends who resemble me to some extent insofar as I resemble them to some extent, and we have come together to build a crystalline house on the rocks of a vertex. But this is not why we consider ourselves gods. And there are eagles and there are snakes who, like the gods, love the virgin heights, and we are among them as well. We are all creatures, but creatures of the peaks, crouched together between the symbolic shrubs of a truly free art form. We will cultivate poisonous flowers of pure beauty in spite of the impish apes who live in the lowest marshlands of society, and who will hurl their impotent curses toward our nest of violent hermits. I've concluded my statement, but I haven't yet defined myself. I know that anyone, even the most humble of mortals, has the right to make a statement of this kind. But I also believe that aside from having the right, the true genius should regard it as an absolute duty. Iconoclasts, forward. History, materialism, monism, positivism, and all the isms of this world are old and rusty tools which I don't need or mind anymore. My principle is life, and my end is death. I wish to live my life intensely and embrace my death tragically. You are waiting for the revolution. Let it be. My own began a long time ago. When you are ready, God, what an endless wait, I won't mind going with you for a while. But when you stop, I shall continue on my way towards the great and sublime conquest of the nothing. Any society that you build will have its limits, and outside the limits of any society, unruly and heroic tramps will wander with their wild and virgin thought. Those who cannot live without planning ever new and dreadful outbursts of rebellion. I shall be among them. And after me, as before me, there will be those saying to their fellows, so turn to yourselves rather than to your gods and idols. Find what hides within you and bring it to the light. Show yourselves. Because every person who, searching his own inwardness, extracts what was mysteriously hidden therein is a shadow eclipsing any form of society which can exist under the sun. All societies tremble when the scornful aristocracy of tramps, inaccessibles, unique ones, rulers over the ideal, and conquerors of the nothing resolutely advances. So come on, iconoclasts, forward. Already the foreboding sky grows dark and silent.